What's happening, hardscapers? This is episode 32 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk to you about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. And today we're joined by Geoff Whitcher. He's the president of Azpects USA, and he drops in for 2 episodes to talk with us about EASYJoint and EasyClick Base, 2 products that have really intrigued me in the past few months, and that I'm excited about implementing into my business. And in this episode, we cover everything EASYJoint, from installation, what it's made of, and everything you need to know about using it. So without further ado, here's our interview with Geoff Whitcher. Today we're joined by Geoff Whitcher. He is the president of Azpects USA, and he is here to talk with us about EASYJoint and EasyClick Base, 2 products I am excited about implementing in my business this year and to learn more about from this interview. Geoff, thank you so much for joining me here.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
Geoff, let's just get started by learning a little bit more about yourself and Azpects. Can you give our audience a little bit of a background about yourself, how you got started in this industry, and also Azpects?
Yeah, I guess I'm very experienced. Sometimes that means you're just old, and that's probably I'm probably qualifying both counts. I got started in the hardscape business back in 1979. Working for a company called Marley Paving in the UK. They were one of the first, what we call block paving companies that became pavers in the USA, but we were installing paving, block paving on various projects from airports to ports. And then I came to the States in 1985 as an installer. So I came here to, as I thought at the time, teach America how to lay pavers. Kind of took me 10 years to figure out. I can't really tell you guys anything, so maybe I just help out a little bit. I was a founder member of both the CPI and the ICPI. I was on the construction committees, along with our late good friend, Bill Schneider. I'd like to give a little shout out to Bill, one of the greats of this industry. And I was a contractor for 25 years. Worked on a number of major breakthrough products, as well as DFW Airport being one of them. I installed the pavers on the taxiways, mechanically installed 1 million square feet down in the Bahamas. So I've been around this business for a long time. And 3 or 4 years ago, I switched over to the supply side. And I knew these guys at Azpects in the UK, and they had a product called EASYJoint. And I'd seen similar products from other German manufacturers, and I found it to be intriguing as well as an installer. And I then, in talking with these guys back there, we decided that the time was right to start Azpects USA. And so here I am, 3 years later, president of Azpects USA.
And you mentioned the EASYJoint there, and that's something that came to my attention last year, late in the season, and really intrigued me, as well as this EasyClick Base that I found out about early this year at one of the conferences I went to. So 2 subjects I want to get into today, and starting with EasyJoint. Can you tell our audience a little bit more about this EasyJoint, what it's made of? Because this is a big departure from the typical polymeric sand that the most of us are installing. What can you tell us, at least, that this EasyJoint stuff is made of?
It's really the anti-polymeric sand, and I don't believe that EasyJoint's the answer to every single joint issue. Obviously, polymeric sand has its place, as does regular sand in joints, as does sealing sand in joints. EasyJoint is a air-cured product as opposed to water-cured. So when you apply EasyJoint, you're applying it wet. So that means you can apply it if it rained yesterday, if it rains today, while you're installing it, or if it's going to rain tomorrow, anytime in the future. So unlike polymeric, where obviously everything has to be bone dry when you put it in, it enables you to finish a project. And that's why a lot of contractors are liking this product. It enables you to finish and get paid the day you finish the job, instead of having to go back, send people back to the job, and that costs money to do. It's also a permeable product, and we're seeing, and I'm sure you see this, especially in the north part of the country here, that a lot of guys are installing on open, clean stone bases now, as opposed to laying on C33 sand. And so EASYJoint will work in that situation because much like building a sandcastle, wet sand tends to stand up and hold up a little better than dry sand. So when this EASYJoint is washed down into the joints, it does hold up in the joint, won't pour down into that open base, and actually grabs the base a little bit. So it does give you a good bond with the base. And it can also be pressure washed. A number of times I hear from contractors, and I've done this before, homeowner calls me back and says, hey, I took my hose pipe out and I got a little aggressive, but hey, your polymeric sand came out. Come back and fix it. And it's always the contractor's fault, right? So instead of having to do that, you can pressure wash EASYJoint. You can keep it clean. And pressure washing it will actually take it back to its original permeability. So it's a maintainable, permeable joint system. It doesn't have to be a permeable job. I mean, you can lay it, you can put it down if you've laid on a good, clean concrete sand. But it does give you the ability to do a permeable job that's maintainable by the homeowner.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned, polymeric sand has its place, and sweeping in regular sand and sealing over that has its place, and as does this EASYJoint. It's all about giving contractors the option to choose the best approach to that project. Now, with EASYJoint, you talked about, this hybrid base system, the installing over clean stone that a lot of people are moving towards. It's an awesome option for that. It's a great option for even over the regular wash sand. What about if it's an actual permeable system? Can it be used for that permeable system, or is it going to get clogged with things over time? You also talked about how you can open it back up if you want to pressure wash it. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think you got to understand when you talk about a permeable system, permeable installations in the States, and most people are thinking of, reservoir under the pavement, commercial applications. And of course, ICPI has a plethora of documentation and reports on permeability. But we see a lot of folks that just from an environmental point of view want to have water get back into the ground, whether it be a pool deck, a driveway, or a patio, as well as these bigger commercial jobs. And so a lot of times you normally put a number 8 or a number 9 grit in the joint. And the problem with that is you go out with a broom and you're sweeping it and you've got grit all over your patio or your pool. You can't really clean that joint. And yes, all of these permeable systems will over time clog up. The difference with the EASYJoint is that the only particles that get into the EASYJoint are the finer materials, and they don't go all the way down the joint. They tend to seal themselves up in the top, let's say, 1/8 of an inch of that sand EASYJoint. And when you then come back to pressure wash it, you're blowing out that fine material, and it will go back to permeability. We've conducted ASTM tests on permeability, and we found that unlike open graded materials that will take, maybe 500 to 2,000 inches an hour, EASYJoint will allow between 50 and 70 inches an hour water through it. Doesn't seem like a lot in comparison to some of the other systems, but Hurricane Harvey in Houston dumped 4 inches in 24 hours. So it's not it's a lot of rain, a lot of water will go through the EASYJoint. And you can go out there and regular maintenance, you can sweep it. Looks like a normal paving joint. It's more attractive than an open graded joint. Much more practical. So that's the big difference between it. So yes, it is a maintainable permeable system.
Incredible. And getting into the process of installation with a typical polymeric sand installation, you're sweeping in that sand and then you're consolidating it with the compactors, I'm sure and then potentially, sweeping in some more to get it just below that 1/8 of an inch or below that chamfer of the paver, whatever it may be. Does EASYJoint have a similar installation? I know it involves water. It's not like spraying the polymeric sand, but can you walk us through the installation method with this EASYJoint?
The product is packaged totally differently from polymeric sand. Most of the polymerics are in, as you know, bags stacked on a pallet. And EASYJoint comes in inside the tub, the plastic tub, there is a sealed plastic bag, and that bag the oxygen has been taken out of the bag so that the product remains inert inside the bag. All the time it's in that bag, sealed, it'll stay soft. If it's underwater, it stays soft. So the process is, and probably the most important step to the whole thing, is to pre-wet the pavement, especially more porous products like some of the imported Indian sandstones or concrete pavers that have that 5% or so absorption. And the reason for that is that the EASYJoint has a little bit of an oil carrier. It's a linseed oil, because there's no chemical reaction with the water with EASYJoint. And that linseed oil, if you pre-wet the pavement, then the stone acts a lot like a sponge. If you have a dry sponge, oil will soak into it. If you have a wet sponge, it'll just sit on top of the water. So it's easy to clean it off. So when you apply EASYJoint, you literally open the tub, take the bag out, break open the bag, dump the EASYJoint on the pavement, and then add water to it after you've already wet the pavement. You add water to the pile, basically forming a slurry. The water is only there for three things. One, it helps to form a slurry, which enables you to push that material over the surface and to allow it to get into the joints. And the other reason the water is there is to help compact those joints. Water is a great compactor. You only have to use decomposed granite to know that. It's good at compacting material. And the third thing is just to clean off. You're literally hosing it, which obviously is a great benefit over other materials because you have no haze, there's no debris, no residue left on the surface. You're just literally hosing it off. And that's really all there is to it. You sweep it into the joints, you hose it off, and then you just sweep it off and you're done. A one-step process. There's no two-step process, no having to guess how much water to put on it. With EASYJoint, you cannot put too much water. It's impossible to over-wet it.
And that means that even if it's raining, we can still be installing it. And obviously we have to wet the pavement down first. So even if the pavement's wet, we can install it no matter what. Or is there a certain point of rainfall that we should maybe hold off and wait till that rainfall stops?
I'd be concerned about lightning more than I would anything else. If you're in a storm there really isn't any limit to the amount of water that can go on it. All the water will do is compact it a little bit more into the joint. And so really there isn't anything that you can do to hurt the product. And one of the other things about EASYJoint, because it's a wet and wet applied and air cured, is that if you have any left over, you just put it back in the bucket, top it up with a couple of inches of water on the top of it, and then put the lid back on, put it in the back of your truck, and it's good for 12 months. There's literally no waste with this product. I hear talking to guys. I was up in Montreal last week at a conference, and guys are always talking about the half bags of polymeric sand that go hard in the back of the truck. There is a lot of waste with that product, and even for a dealer to have buckets in the yard that aren't going to get damaged. That product's going to be good when you open it up, as opposed to the bags at the bottom of the pallet on sometimes with the sands that are always broken open. You go to Home Depot or somewhere, you can always see that. So there's a lot less wastage from people, and all these things add up. It is a more expensive product, and we're not going to hide behind the fact that it's a little bit more money. You're going to pay more for it. But when you add up all of the benefits, from the low waste to the quicker job, get it done, not have to go back, over the course of a season, you'll find that contractors will actually come out ahead financially if they use a product like EASYJoint.
Yeah, and especially if you finish the install in a rain and you can't do the polymeric sand, so you have to come back the next day and complete the job, and that's a whole extra wasted amount of time. However much time was left in that previous day, with EASYJoint you can just come in and finish that job that day and not worry about it. So definitely I can see so many different benefits to using this system. And when it comes to consolidating that material down. Obviously, it's the water that's doing it in this case, but a tamper if you're doing polymeric sand installation. Now, with polymeric sand installation, they recommend a minimum of 1 inch of sand to be able to form a good bind with those polymers. What about with EASYJoint? Is there a specified depth that we should be getting with EASY-based sand joint?
The EASYJoint needs at least 3/4 of an inch. An inch is better, but 3/4 of an inch minimum. You know, a lot of times you've got to be careful about making sure that the joints are cleaned out before you lay, especially in fairly busy construction sites where you're the last guy in. You've got punch-out work going on. You've got guys walking and sweeping all over the thing. And we've had occasions where, you know, the joints have been full of debris, and then in goes the EASYJoint, and you've only got maybe an 1/8 or 1/4 inch of it on the top, and that's just not going to work. So you do need to have at least a 3/4 depth. And on the joint width, which is probably our most limiting factor, is that you do need a good 3 to 4 millimeter joint, so a little over an 1/8 of an inch joint for EASYJoint to get in. Partly because of grain size, but also, as we all know from our early training days, you know, dry sand is needed to go into a joint in paving. Anything below an 1/8 of an inch, you're going to work all day to get EASYJoint down there. Just because it's wet, it will tend to bridge. What we recommend on a situation where you're down at that lower limit of a 3 millimeter or an 1/8 inch joint is to, after you put the material in, take a rolling compactor or a plate compactor over it. And that'll help to settle that material down in. And then if there's any top up needed, then go back over using the same technique, just water it in, and you'll get those joints full.
Gotcha. And then you brought up the minimum amount. What about the maximum joint distance? The joint 1/8 of an inch minimum, is there a maximum?
It'll go out to six inches. There is no theoretical maximum, no. I mean, if you take a bag of EASYJoint, poke a pinhole in the bag and leave it overnight, next morning it's going to be a solid lump. And that lump is approximately 9 inches by 6 by 6 or whatever. I mean, it's a big lump. Just roll it on the floor. It's just like a lump of concrete. It's very strong. So, you know, it's gonna go off pretty hard as soon as that air gets at it.
Yeah, and when I saw it at the show, it was displayed as a bowl on a wire with water coming down from a tap to show its permeability.
That's right. Those are our special water features. Yes, it does. That's a very good demonstration of the permeability of the product. Water will flow through it. In those cases, or if you took a solid block of EASYJoint and you poured water through the bucket, you're going to be getting over 500 inches an hour through it. It does pour through. Our testing that we talked about earlier, where we talked about between 50 and 70 inches, that was done under real ASTM test conditions, where obviously you don't have a whole lot of joint. In the ring test, you've got a lot of paver, which is not absorbing the water. So, yeah, when it's just a block, yeah, it's impressive to see it just pouring through that without softening, without any deterioration to the material.
And then not only that, but you're also not inhaling the dust that comes with installing a polymeric sand, which I'm sure is not good for our health, especially if you're not using some sort of mask as well.
That's right. We do say it's literally the only dust-free solution on the market, and that's an obvious thing to say. You're underwater, but it is. And fair play to all the companies that are trying to get these dust-free solutions with the saw cutting, etc. But it is only dust-free, and that means that if you have to clean off your pavement, you can still do your job and finish it. If you are wet cutting a pavement, it's the same situation. Wet cut, you have to wait for it to dry to do the polymeric sand. So with this, sure, you can just clean off, wash off, and go for your EASYJoint, and then still finish the job. So there's a lot of benefits. So I think that what we're beginning to see too is that a lot of the manufacturers of paving are going for a little bit wider joints. Obviously that helps. And all I can say to contractors that are, fed up with polymeric sand or whatever it might be, whatever their reasons, if they want to look at using EASYJoint, sell the wider jointed pavers. They're out there. You still get paid the same per square foot. And it does make the job a little bit easier for you. So there's some advice.
When it comes to, comparing it to the materials that are in, or the ingredients that are in polymeric sand that help complete the binding process in it, are there any ingredients that you can tell us about that make up EASYJoint for us to get a better picture of what it actually is?
You'll be looking for my Yorkshire pudding recipe next. I don't. There's nothing particularly. I mean, the linseed oil is partly what makes this work. And if you look at going back to the Egyptians, we have marvels of the pyramids. A lot of what they did there is took sand and soaked it in oil and let it dry. So the oil does have a binding capacity to it. And all we've done to it really is added, and for the want of a better word, polymers, but for want of a better word, is they are not water-cured, they're air-cured polymers. So that's what makes it different. So there is a very small percentage of polymer, there's linseed oil, and that's about it. And that's the way it works. The big difference being the air-cured versus the water-cured.
Now, Geoff, is there anything else that we haven't talked about with EASYJoint that you'd want to highlight as we close out talking about this product?
I think that it's a product that isn't for everything, but it's a good solution for a lot of occasions and for a lot of contractors. So as contractors, I would say have some available or have a dealer that go to them, tell them they should have it, whatever. It gives you an opportunity to finish up the work. And that's really the biggest advantage to it. It doesn't like some things. It doesn't like chatter on driveways, for instance, where you have maybe on this open graded, ASTM and the ICPI, they don't really like this open graded clean stone base because there is chatter to it. You're not getting sand coming up in between stone, etc. And EASYJoint doesn't like chatter. So there are some situations that I wouldn't recommend using it. All of these can be found on our website, it can be found on our literature. But in general, it's a darn good product, and I think that it does solve a problem. And anytime you can solve a problem for somebody, I think you've got a product that you can sell. So that's where we're about.
Oh, actually, one last thing I want to ask you about with that is the temperature. What is, how low in temperature can you go to be able to install it?
Yeah, good point. If you can get water through the hose, then you can install EASYJoint. So if you get down to 32 and a little bit and the water's still flowing, then you can still apply it. And if it freezes, be it behind that overnight, then it will not hurt the material. And once it finally does dry out, then it will cure. And one thing it has to do is dry. The only thing that EASYJoint doesn't like is staying wet for long periods of time. And the one application that I guess is its biggest enemy, and this is not only EASYJoint. Polymerics also have this issue on overlay situations, where with an overlay, you may get a little indentation in the concrete where water will sit for a long time. And that's not going to be good for EASYJoint or any other material with these chemicals in it. So those are the only things that we would recommend looking at some other way of doing an overlay. Which one of the reasons that we brought out EASYJoint Pro, which is another product. I know we're not going to talk about this too much today, but EASYJoint Pro is a 2-part epoxy system that is for commercial use. Has a lot more bond, a lot stronger than the regular EASYJoint. Again, more for commercial. But in an overlay situation, it will, because it's a chemical bond and not an air cure bond, it will perform underwater. So even if those joints remain wet, then it will perform very well. So EASYJoint Pro for overlay situations Is a very good solution. I'll have that one on the next podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. That just definitely intrigued me a little bit more with that one. Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. Be sure to tune in to the next episode on Easy Click Base with Geoff Whitcher and check out more about what Azpects has got going on at azpects.com. And let us know what you want to learn about future episodes by reaching out to us on our Instagram at howtohardscape or contacting us on our email contact@howtohardscape.com. We really love the suggestions that have been coming in for that, and we'd love it if you subscribe to the podcast, left us a review rating on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you can. It really helps us get traction for this podcast and for future episodes and getting more guests on the show. We look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.